Hey Space Watchers, and welcome back here from Singapore. We are at the 17th edition of the GSTCE, but it's the first time that the director of UNOOSA, Aarti Holla-Maini, who is my guest now, is here. Aarti, how are you doing today?
Very well. Nice to be in Singapore for my first time ever.
Yeah. Tell me more, what brings you over here? So what is the importance of Singapore or this event for you at the UN?
Singapore is particularly important for UNOOSA right now. It is not only representing a smaller spacefaring nation, an emerging spacefaring nation, but it's also coordinating and chairing something called the FOSS. And we talk about the Space FOSS, which is the Forum of Small States. And I think Singapore has really shown that you can be a member of COPUS, the Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space, even when you're a small country, and you can have a voice and make sure it's heard, also by partnering with other countries who may be of similar size. That's one reason. But what am I doing in Singapore? I'm here because we're actually signing an MOU with Austin, and the purpose of that is to start a collaboration whereby Singapore will support us in accessing space data and satellite data which has been processed, which we can then deploy in the service of developing countries. And as the United Nations, that's a really important mission for us to bridge the data divide.
Tell me more about that. In your keynote, you brought up this topic as well, but maybe you can tell our audience why this data access is so important and what role Singapore and other countries can play in that. Because the Earth observation market is well served worldwide, so where's the deal here?
Indeed, we hear about so much data being available, even being available for free, whether it's Landsat, CBERS, Copernicus data, it's already there. But what we hear in the technical advisory missions and our engagement with developing countries in particular is that they need actionable intelligence. And what they mean by that is higher resolution, very high resolution data, which they can use working with us to, for example, create a digital twin of an island, which they can then use, for example, to simulate sea level rise. So they can see exactly which roads, which buildings will be affected first. And this is important, for example, in early warning. It's important for early planning, for urban planning. If sea level does rise, if there is flash flooding, which buildings do you need to evacuate first? How do you plan for the future? Where do you build? Where do you not build? So really equipping developing countries and local authorities, disaster management authorities, by giving them a tool which is built off of high resolution data, make sure that we can not just go in and train them and leave, but actually go in, train them and leave them with some kind of intelligence that they can work with by themselves to build their own capacity and be more resilient going forward.
It's interesting that you talk about this particular use case, because in the flash floodings in Valencia earlier last year, or in the Ahr Valley in Germany, that came very sudden. And we have the data, Spain has the data, and now we're talking about the developing nations. So you talked about actionable intelligence. Is it really the data, or is it the intelligence behind? So what is needed? Because for me, there are two different alleys.
You're right. On the one hand, it's access to this imagery and knowing how to use it. But secondly, it's actually doing it.
Yeah, okay.
So the very, very sad thing about Valencia, number one, the United Nations has an Earth station in Valencia. So it is a satellite hub. But the imagery was available and it was not used. Or not used sufficiently.
Okay.
So I think that's really very sad, and these are the kind of problems that we're trying to address.
I see. Coming back here to Singapore, what is your first impression of this conference?
I can see that Singapore has a strong focus on commercialization in particular, on supporting capital investment, finance, startups, into really stimulating the growth of a space economy out of this small but very powerful hub. So it's a very positive impression, it's a forward-looking impression, and we need this kind of thing. Even though we're the UN and we talk about grassroots sustainable development in developing countries, countries, it's not just about basics, it's about bringing the latest technological solutions. For example, artificial intelligence used to process satellite imagery, and using that to equip these countries with the state-of-the-art technology solutions.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time. Enjoy the remaining conference here. And with that, SpaceWatch out from the first day here of the GSTCE in Singapore. SpaceWatch out.
Thank you.